I think I tested a little over a month, maybe about 5 weeks or so, and got 23R. Overall 60% win rate with a 1.7R on average. So, super happy with this. Thanks everyone for joining today. I'm excited to kind of share another attempt with this turtle soup strategy. We did some testing with it a couple weeks ago with the NASDAQ during New York session. It's a pretty popular ICT model. I'm not going to go too in depth in this. I did a previous video. I went really thoroughly through all of this. So we'll kind of focus a little high level today. If you guys have questions, obviously feel free to reach out in the chat, but high level, just to kind of recap before we get into the backtesting, we looked at kind of how we can use these simplified kind of change in states of delivery, kind of closures past body, highs and lows, using new week opening gaps and time-based liquidity to try and identify kind of our bias based on where price is at during the session. And then we did that to kind of identify reversals after time-based liquidity sweeps and change in states, both long and short, as well as if price is already on its way towards a kind of clear draw on liquidity, can we catch a fair value gap tap along the way? And I've noticed if you can overlap this with a new week opening gap or another CISD retest at the same time, these are going to be a little higher probability. So similar to what we did last week, we had kind of fun doing this like a bias quiz with you guys, trying to kind of use these elements we've talked about to identify bias. So we'll do the same. I've made a kind of new quiz with you guys for this. So this is London session, by the way. So we've got New York session, this red box, Asia session with this yellow box, and we can see obviously the previous day highs, previous day lows, and I've marked out this kind of pink or purple new week opening gap down here. So let me know in the chat, would you guys expect kind of a breakout and continuation long or some type of reversal short on this day? Let me know in the chat what you guys think your bias would be for this day. This is a pretty easy one, so I'm starting easy with you. They're going to get harder. Okay, a couple mixed results, a couple longs, a couple sells. Yeah, we'll look at the result here. So with the time-based liquidity in mind, we're already pretty close to daily highs. And then another important concept that we also discussed last week is the fact that after you have pretty impulsive moves, either direction, price often needs to rebalance. Like it doesn't just go up forever or down forever. So often you need to come back to some sort of equilibrium. And so not only have we already swept Asia's high here, we're also pretty close to the previous day high. So, possibly if there was like pretty significant displacement for a breakout, confirmation, you could look long, but generally this is going to be a type of session you're going to want to look short. So we didn't end up taking that previous day high, but we had swept that kind of Asia high, and ultimately looking for shorts on this day would have been the right answer. We didn't actually come back and rebalance this, but you can see price generally doesn't continue one direction forever. You generally need to see some rebalance. So the fact that we'd already swept some time-based liquidity and we had an impulsive move that needed to rebalance, shorts would have been the move on this day. Next two are going to get harder. So let me know what you guys would think kind of coming into this session. And there can be kind of three answers for this. You would either be looking for longs, you would be looking for shorts, or maybe you're unsure, you don't know, you need a little more information. So let me know what you guys would think if you came into the market open at London and you saw this. What would your instincts be if you're kind of trying to determine bias? Would you go long? Would you short? Would you kind of wait for a little more information? Okay, a couple people are saying they're not sure. Is anybody confident in longing or shorting? Got one person thinking shorts. Cool. Your answer is actually related with this. So I would say for the most part, we don't have the case where we need to rebalance in this case. I'll show you guys kind of after, but we have actually already rebalanced from this low to this high. This kind of wick down here did actually rebalance this range. So there's not kind of that same premium and discount draw in this case. But if I were to come into the session, there's kind of two things that I would be looking for. I definitely wouldn't do anything right away because I'm really not sure. So those of you that said wait, I think that's probably what I would do. But I would kind of expect one of two things. I would either look for a sweep of this time-based liquidity above this Asia high, kind of overnight, kind of intermediate session high as well, and then maybe a reversal, or I could potentially look for a bounce off this new week opening gap, because oftentimes after these new week opening gaps are filled, they just simply act as support and resistance. So I would probably wait for kind of a sweep of either side of this and then look for confirmation. So ultimately, those of you that said wait or short were correct. Ultimately, there was a sweep of this Asia high. It took a little bit for a change in state to kind of show up, but after that change in state of delivery, you could have started to look for a short using the high as your stop loss, and you could have caught a nice move almost all the way back down to this new week opening gap. It was actually front ran a little bit. It shows you kind of how this acts as support and resistance. So you guys are pretty good on that one. Last one right here. You came into session, price looked like this. we're kind of right on top of this new week opening gap. Would you be looking for long? Would you be looking for shorts? Or would you need to see a little more information? What do you guys think if you came into London session and price looks like this? We got a few mixed answers on this one. I think this is the hardest of the three. So anybody else want to throw their answer in the hat? One more short. So kind of the first thing that I see when I come into this session is this new week opening gap the previous day was acting as support. We had a bounce here. We had a little bit of a bounce here. And now we flipped this zone from support to potential resistance. We have, obviously kind of cut back through it, but I would ultimately, kind of look for one of two things again. We've swept this Asia high. Maybe after London session starts, can I find some sort of entry that lines up with this new week opening gap, whether it's a fair value gap retest or a change of state for a shift to the downside? And so I would again I wouldn't do anything right at open. I need to wait and see a little more information. But ultimately, what you saw here was price kind of hung around this new week opening gap for a while. There were no fair value gaps created or anything really around this new week opening gap, and then ultimately there was a change in state, kind of the body of this green candle here that overlapped with the new week opening gap. And so if you use the short from this change in state right here, it lined up with the new week opening gap. This is going to be a pretty high probability reversal, just using the high as your stop loss. And you could have, caught all the way down to Asia lows. I think for today, I'm just going to be mostly going for like 1.5 hour base hits. But what I've been noticing from my testing is if you're near a new week opening gap, if you can align your entry with that, it just adds additional probability, another reason for price to react in your direction, whether that's a change in state in this case, or a fair value gap retest. Maybe price is broken out to the upside and you're coming back to retest a fair value gap that lines up with the new week opening up. So I might ask you guys again some more questions as we start backtesting, but I want to go back over just a couple of quick examples and just show you guys again kind of what we're going to be visualizing for this. So generally we're going to be looking for time-based liquidity sweeps of usually New York or Asia lows or highs or lows. If we're testing London session, it could also be previous day highs or lows. The time-based liquidity is going to have more merit to it than just any kind of random interim highs and lows. And then after those, if we're looking for a reversal, we'll look for a change in state, basically a candle closing below the kind of body high of the last down move. And then looking for a reversal just stops at the low. And again, just going for 1.5 hour is probably what I'm looking for. And then on the flip side, if the move has already kind of happened and we're kind of starting to sell pretty aggressively, we could maybe just look for a continuation move with a fair value gap retest using the kind of higher low of the candle that created that fair value gap as our stop loss. And I've just been going for 2R with these trades. We'll look at the risk reward simulator afterwards to see kind of what's optimal, but very simple entry model. I guess the last thing I want to just mention to you guys, we tested this on ES and NQ in the past, kind of right at New York Open, and it was pretty promising then. I'm testing this on gold futures today. GC is the pair during London session, just to show you guys, there's different options you can use with this. Obviously, if you're trading CFDs, you're going to have to factor in a little bit more of a spread, so you may need to be a little more conservative with your stop loss, maybe a little more conservative with your take profit. But GC is similar to the indice futures. The spread's really low. So I'll kind of pivot over to Fxreplay now. I want someone give me a random date in the last 3 years, could even be the last few months. We can kind of test this whenever you guys want. I've done a little bit of testing, I think in 2022. So someone let me know in the chat a random date in the last 3 years. I just want to kind of pick a totally random time. June 8th, 2024 was the first answer. All right, we're going to do some summer testing. Summer is typically a little choppier, but a lot of so June 8th was a Saturday. So we'll basically start on that following Monday. So June 10th, 2024 is essentially where we'll start. And so I was kind of showing you guys, I've got these session indicators to show kind of New York and London session. The session indicator by Fxreplay is just for Asia session because they don't have daylight savings. So I usually just align with their 9 a.m. to 3:30 is their kind of Tokyo session. So going with UTC, that's kind of the settings I have for Asia sessions. The yellow box will basically be our Tokyo session indicator. New York, I have kind of highlighted here, and I've basically got 8 to 4 p.m. for New York, 3 to 8 p.m. 3 to 8 a.m. for London session. And then the silver bullet indicators, probably not something you guys haven't used too much. There's a lot you can add in here. I'm really just concerned with the new week opening gaps at the very bottom, so you can kind of uncheck everything else in here. And I think I usually do 3 new week opening gaps. You can do more if you want, and then you can kind of change with the visualization if you want. And then lastly, just this fair value gap indicator. I think I just turned off the mitigate boxes, so I can kind of see all of them pretty easily with all these. So that's all the indicators that I have. Usually you kind of want to zoom out so you can kind of see the new week opening gaps and previous day highs and lows. But yeah, we'll go into the next day. I'm gonna kind of set this up how I want. I think I just have go to set to 3 a.m., which is London open. So we'll just go to the next session. Let me know in the chat, what do you guys think would be kind of our game plan today? Would we generally want to be looking for shorts or longs kind of on this first day? Okay, a couple longs. Yeah, I would agree. I think we're pretty deep into discount here. We have this big move down that if I use this parallel channel tool, kind of mark out here, this range needs to rebalance, right? Like price generally doesn't go down for straight down forever. So not only do we have that kind of draw to the upside from needing to rebalance, but we also are really close to some kind of session liquidity levels. We've already taken kind of Asia low down here. We're really close to this daily low down here. So I'm not going to like immediately enter right away, but if we can flip this tiny new week opening gap, you'll also notice that it would be in alignment with this new week opening gap. So I would be open to a CISD retest for long here, or we can maybe sweep this previous day low and look for a reversal at that point. So we'll see if kind of either one of those presents, and that's exactly what we have. Oops, let me go back to the cursor. So we've already taken Asia low. We didn't quite take the previous day low. We front ran a little bit, but now we have formed a change in state right here with price closing above kind of this last move down here, and now we're also back above this new week opening up. So we'll place order right here. I've been using the most recent low in my testing. This is something you guys can play around with. Maybe you want to use especially if you're trading CFDs, it might be better to use the ultimate low. You could also test it using bodies, the recent low. I've been using the recent low when I was testing this, so I'm going to kind of stick with that for now. And then I've just been going for like simple 1.5 hour trades. The risk reward similar is going to help me know what I should be going for. So that's generally what I've been using. So simply just come in here, place order. I've got the position tool selected. I've been using entry trigger 1 as a tag for the CISD retests and entry trigger 2 for the fair value gap retests. So I can like filter them in the analytics and we'll kind of see what happens. So we're in profit a little bit, came back to entry, back in profit. Nice one. Another thing I want to bring out when you guys are testing London session, oftentimes there's going to be like really high impact pre-market news if you're trading like London session. And so CPI is like, we saw today. I don't know if any of you guys are trading today, huge candle after CPI. And oftentimes the market will consolidate before those moves and it will like kind of seek liquidity. So honestly, something that might be a good rule if you're trading this with London session is if there's really high impact pre-market news, which is generally like CPI, non-farm payrolls, GDP. Those are probably like the three biggest ones that typically move to CPI and NFP especially. You might just want to not trade London session if that big impact news is coming up, because most likely it's going to take out some liquidity and then have a big move. So now we're at the kind of peak of Asia session high right here. So we could potentially look for one of two things, either a change in state and a reversal here, or if we really start to displace to the upside, we could even, look to target some of these highs. So I'm really open to either on this. If we get a change in state pretty quick, then I would look for that. We haven't quite shifted it yet. So we would need a closure below the body of the candle that started this move right there. So right now we have a change in states. It's all the way back up here. So this move might happen without us, or we might have to pivot and just try to look for a fair value gap. But if I look for a change in state, retest right here, let's see if we can catch a retest. Okay, unfortunately got a loss. So this is probably a trade I should have taken. I'm not going to go back and record it because I didn't see it in real time. But yeah, this would have been the fair value gap retest trade, kind of back up to the high. If you were, okay, like we're starting to displace Asia's high, now we could potentially start, I didn't know, I also missed this. You see these like almost exact equal highs up here, 340.5. This is a really strong draw on liquidity. So similar to the unicorn model, for those of you that have seen that, these relative equal highs or exact equal highs are a strong form of liquidity. I totally missed these. But yeah, this is a good reason why price continue, because these are often like a magnet for price action. So let's go to the next session. We get a change in state pretty much right away at the start. I just want to make sure it has to be specifically past the body of the candle. So this one might actually be exactly the same. Let's see, 233.4. So yeah, I wouldn't consider this a CISD. I need to see closure beyond it. And we didn't get it right there. So we have not had a CISD. There we go. So again, I was waiting for specifically a closure past the kind of body high, and we could even use this more recent one as kind of the local CISD. So let's see if we can catch a CISD retest right here. And I see there's somebody answered a question. I'll try and get to that too. So there's entry trigger 1. Look for a retest. Okay, fortune cut a loss. We can do one more attempt if we want. There's no change in state, kind of chopping around a little bit. This candle has a pretty good body, so I'm honestly comfortable using this candle right here as a potential change in states. Some people might require 2 candles, but as long as it's like a decent sized body candle, I'm okay using singular candle for change in states, at least like from the testing I've been doing so far. So let's see if we can catch our second attempt on this. Again, just going for 1.5 hour, nothing crazy. Maybe come back and rebalance this fair value gap over here. This is entry trigger 1. Second attempt I've also been using. Maybe we can look at the results later and see, like, is it worth taking those second attempts, or should we just stick to the first one? That's like another thing you can use the tags for. So we got tagged in. Oh man, got really close for take profit. Come on. Oh man, this is a brutal trade. Okay, this is a trade that gives you some gray hair. So let's see. We've already rebalanced this. We've just recently swept Asia low, so kind of the same thing as the previous day. If we get a CISD, I'm open to a potential long, or if we start really displacing to the downside, I'll be open to maybe a short down to this previous day low. It kind of looks like we're getting the ladder there. So I really don't want to long, or I don't want to short like right at these kind of session lows, but after like price starts kind of tipping its hand and showing you, okay, it kind of wants to go to the downside, that's generally when I'm like more open to starting to look for a short. So this is a fair value gap right here, that I can maybe look for one of those fair value gap continuation trades. If we can kind of tap back into this fair value gap and look for continuation kind of back below these lows here, maybe heading towards this previous day low. So I'll place order here using entry trigger 2, and my stop loss is just at the high of the candle that created this fair value gap. Oh man, did we get front ran? Yeah, so I think this like literally like tapped us into the tick both in and out. So we got tapped into this like to the tick, and then it hit our TP like to the tick. It's definitely not going to happen all the time. But yeah, so this is basically the continuation version of the model, where you're basically, okay, it looks like price is drawing, probably down into these previous day lows. I'm just going to try and catch 2R of the move. I found a fair value gap that I could look to tap into. I liked the size of this stop loss. It wasn't too tight. So I just went ahead and looked for a retest of this fair value gap and kind of wrote it down for 2R. We probably ended up taking that previous day low, yeah. So these again, like if you're confident that the previous day low is going to get tagged, you could maybe take a little bit off the table at 2R and then you hold a little bit more if you want. You could have caught, much more than 2R in this example. But yeah, I wouldn't have taken this even though it would have worked out. So what I would look for is maybe a tap of this new week opening gap and then a CISD reversal, if we can kind of come up there and get something like that. So I'm looking for some kind of CISD. Okay, there we go. We didn't really have anything great. This singular green doji candle, I absolutely would not consider a change in state. This one right here is also pretty small, but we have one all the way down here. I don't love how big the stop loss is going to be for this. I guess I can use the most recent high. It's not too far away, but we'll give this one a shot as kind of a CISD reversal. Since I missed this continuation from before, I'll give this kind of second one a shot. So we got tapped in. There we go. Nice TP. So again, this is another kind of good example that I'm only trading like if I get a win, I'm done for the day. And I think for you, those of you that are beginners, that's like a really good thing to do, so that you don't give back your gains and start tilting and stuff like that. But this shows you, like, you can definitely look for multiple trades with this model per day. If you look for, okay, now we're trending this direction, I can look for continuations. Now we can look for a potential reversal. You could potentially look for additional trades with this model. I just think for most people, it's going to be better to just like stop after a single trade or limit yourself to 2 losses per day. Just kind of protect yourself from tilting and stuff like that. So I'll answer a couple more questions and then we'll pivot to the analytics. So I've heard mixed things about futures. For starters, do you think futures is good for day trading? I feel like swing trading will make me go bald. So yeah, futures, you pretty much have to trade intraday. with almost every prop firm, they literally won't let you hold it past 4 p.m. Eastern. So you literally like have to close your trade before the day's over. You can't swing trade with most futures prop firms. If you do with live capital, you have to have like a pretty large account to swing trade with futures. So yeah, it's more for scalping. It's more for intraday. So if you want to swing trade, like CFDs or live account is really your only option with that. So that just kind of take that in count. We only took 6 trades today, so we'll kind of combine this with the testing I did before, so you have a little bit of a bigger sample size. Total Soup Gold London. So I did some testing with this earlier. We'll go ahead and look at both of the analytics for that right here. So this is the period I tested in 2022. Got a pretty good equity curve. I think I tested a little over a month, maybe about 5 weeks or so, and got 23R. Pretty similar win rates overall. If we include the entire session, including the most recent trades, overall 60% win rate with a 1.7R on average. So, super happy with this. We'll filter it on New York time to see if there's any insights. I guess you could also filter it on London time. Either one works for this. Let's see if we can get any insights from the results. So we had a 7 trade win streak. That would have been nice. Only a 3 trade loss streaks. That's the benefit of having a little bit of a higher win rate. You don't have as many consecutive losses. Buys and sells were pretty similar. We took more buys in general. I guess just the periods I tested, maybe the bias was long more often than not. And then similar to what I saw when I tested this on NQ, it looks like if you're trading this turtle soup model, you might be able to get away with just trading the first 3 hours of London session and just totally ignore anything after the first 3 hours, because it seems like the bulk of the profits kind of come from that kind of first period. The win rates is a little lower in that first hour, a little more kind of variability. So you could also optimize if you only wanted to trade 1 hour. Then I would say that kind of 4 to 5 a.m. is like the best window that we saw the most profits and win rate. But I think these first 3 hours, you can get a good amount of trades with pretty good win rates. Interesting. So again, you would want a larger sample size to really confirm this, but from what I'm seeing so far, maybe you would also not want to trade this on Fridays. Possibly Fridays tend to be a little choppier. It's the end of the week, a lot of people just don't, there's not as much volume typically, so it might be harder to identify a clear bias. So if you had like a 100, 200 trade sample size and you were seeing this result, super easy optimization is just come up here and literally turn on everything except Friday, and boom, we already have a 67% win rate instead of 61. So that's like a super easy optimization you could look at. I tested a little over a month and got, looks like 18R or so. We tested, I think, maybe a week or so in 2024, and we were able to get, 4 or 5R. So this does seem like a really promising strategy. Again, looks like maybe we could cut out Fridays because it does seem like the other days did perform a little bit better. But yeah, like pretty simple model, to be honest, and you just really got to work on that bias. But you can kind of test out different things. It's the bias does take a lot of time for sure to really figure out. So if that's something you struggle with, it may be better to look for strategies where you don't have to identify that bias, or try to just look for something a little more mechanical. Maybe you only want to look for the reversals, and so you can look for just trading off of those time-based liquidity levels. You probably have a little lower win rate, but it might make it a little easier for you without having to figure out the bias. Last thing, someone mentioned how to use the break-even trade. So say that you were doing some trade management while you were trading, putting your stop about to break even, but maybe it wasn't perfect. So some trades were like a tiny bit of win, tiny bit of loss. You can change this break-even threshold to like 0.1. And it's basically any trades between negative 0.1 and positive 0.1 R will basically count as break even. There aren't going to be any for me today because I didn't do that. But this is a really good way to basically exclude those kind of tiny winners and tiny losers from the win rate and count them as break even just by changing that break even threshold. So we'll kind of remove that. And then last thing I wanted to show you guys is the risk reward simulator, and I'll filter these separately with the different entry triggers we had. So the entry trigger 1 with those CISD retests, we had a little lower win rate, but I'll run the risk reward simulator. I was doing about 1.5R for most of these, and interestingly enough, based on the sample size I have so far, it wasn't that many trades. It's saying potentially holding those CISD reversals for 3R would be more optimal. Based on the period I tested. And we saw that a lot of times where we were catching kind of the low of the move, and it often, continued on quite a ways beyond. So, as you guys get a larger sample size, this is going to be really good information to see, what you might want to optimize. But a counterpoint to that is you obviously have a lot lower win rate, so you could still have a good profit factor using that 1.5R. 2 profit factor is still solid. And if you want to preserve that mental capital of not having as many losses in a row, it's totally fine. Like, I think 1.75R or 1.75 to 4 is like the recommended profit factor range for strategies. So anything honestly above 1.75 should be able to give you a decent equity curve. So you can play around with kind of what fits you, not only what is best for the strategy. And then we'll also look at the fair value gap retests right here. So we had a crazy high win rate. It was only 7 trades, but the continuations looked really, really promising with this. And the 2R that I used was, the most profitable by far. I think I only had like 1 loss with these. So you definitely would want a bigger sample size. But based on the data so far, it looked like for gold, just going for 2R was optimal kind of from all the results. So yeah, thanks for being so engaging. Hopefully all these questions we answered was helpful for you guys. I do think this is a pretty promising strategy. We've obviously, like I said, tested a couple different periods. You definitely would want to test multiple market conditions and different things like that. But if you're someone that trades gold and you're interested in London and futures, this is definitely something you can check out. It's also a pretty flexible strategy. You can test it out with different assets as well. But if you have other questions, feel free to hop in the Discord. If you start testing it, I'm curious to see what results you guys got. Let me know in the comments if you guys have other strategies you're interested in checking out. But with that, we'll kind of wrap it up, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and great weekend. I'll catch you later, everyone. See ya.